Welcome to this episode of Resilience Talks. I'm Daniel Vasile, and we are delighted to be here in Brussels at NATO HQ, joined by the wonderful Sarah Tarry. Ms. Sarah Tarry has been the Director of Defense Policy and Capabilities within the Defense Policy and Planning Division of NATO's International Staff since November 2018. Her portfolio includes work on NATO's deterrence and defense posture, resilience, enablement, space, and other defense policy issues. Prior to this, she was the head of the Operational Preparedness section within the NATO's Operations Division. Previously, she had held a variety of positions in the Canadian Ministry of Defense, including as the Deputy Director for Peacekeeping Policy and the Deputy Director of NATO Policy. Her most recent position prior to returning to Brussels was in Canada's Privy Council Office, where she worked in the Secretariat responsible for providing foreign and defense policy advice to Canada's Prime Minister. Between 2008 and 2012, Ms. Tarry served in the Canadian Joint Delegation to NATO and subsequently in the Defense Policy and Planning Division of NATO International Staff. Ms. Tarry, it is a privilege for us to talk to you today about NATO's mission and its important role in working with member states and with partners around the world to promote resilience and cooperation. With that, Ms. Tarry, let's dive right into our topics for today. So our first question will be, NATO was formed more than 70 years ago. Would you be so kind and tell us what are the values that NATO is based on today, and how does its mission differ today from what it was 70 years ago?
Well, thank you, first of all, Daniel, for the opportunity to talk with you today. It's a great pleasure, and we have great respect and appreciation for the Resilience Center in Bucharest, and so this is a great honor for me. It's an interesting question about the alliance. We are coming up on our 75th anniversary this summer in April, and then we'll celebrate it this summer at the Washington Summit in the United States. And so it's a really good moment to reflect on our history and what is consistent and what has changed in all of this time. And I would say that the Alliance's core purpose, core mission has not changed in this in our history. What's changed a lot is the size of the Alliance. So we've gone from an original 12 member states to now 31, hopefully very soon 32 member states. And the security environment has dramatically changed. While we still are dealing with the threats and challenges posed by Russia, it's a much more complex security environment than we were facing during the Cold War. But the values that the Alliance stands for have always remained the same, and they are the bedrock of this Alliance. So values such as democracy, individual liberty, and the rule of law. And these are, they've never been as important as they are today, and they continue to be our foundation. But what I would say is that the Alliance has shown its adaptability over its 75 years of history, and no matter what challenges it has been presented, it has still stood strong and defended all of its member states, whether that be from an external attack. It's been very active in terms of out-of-area operations and crisis prevention and management, and also in terms of its cooperative security and our relationships with partners, which you mentioned at the beginning.
Okay, thank you. The second one for you, how does NATO react to present-day challenges?
So as I said, the security environment is much more complex and in some ways unpredictable and unstable in recent years. And we face a broader range of challenges. Now, of course, to the east, Russia is our most significant and direct threat to Allies' security and to peace and stability in the Euro-Atlantic area. And its brutal war of aggression against Ukraine has been a reminder that Russia of Russia's activities and efforts to shatter peace in Europe. And as a result of this, the alliance has been significantly strengthening its deterrence and defense posture over many years, really since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014. And we're really undertaking a significant modernization of our approach to collective defense that entails work on having more highly ready forces, stronger advanced plans for crisis and conflict, a command and control system that allows us to address these, to bring forces where they're needed and to use them in a multi-domain way. So we've really undertaken a fundamental strengthening of our approach to collective defense. We also face a second threat, which is from terrorism, which remains the most direct asymmetric threat to NATO. And again, NATO has been very active over many years in terms of increasing our preparedness and our ability to respond to terrorist attacks. And one of the challenges that we've been dealing with over the last number of years is posed by China. And China's stated ambitions and its coercive policies are a challenge to many allies in many different domains. And while China is not an adversary from a NATO perspective, they use a broad range of political and economic tools to manipulate other countries, and we are working very hard also in a resilience context to strengthen our ability to withstand such things. In addition to some of these large state actors, we face some other pervasive instability and security challenges, including the use of mass migration as a political tool, or threats that stem from climate change, which can exacerbate crisis and conflict in around the world, and also contribute to things like promoting migrationary flows. So the world is much more complex than it was. The alliance has an impressive toolbox to deal with it, including against hybrid challenges posed by a variety of state and non-state actors, and we will continue to strengthen our toolbox in order to protect the security of all allies.
NATO is an organization that is both military and political. What are some of the missions currently being carried out by NATO in the wider Black Sea area?
So the Black Sea region is incredibly important to the alliance. It's a region of strategic importance. It has always been. The war in Ukraine has put a heightened focus on the Black Sea, but it has always been a very important region to the alliance. And there's a number of efforts that we are pursuing. One, since 2022, and in response to Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, we've established 2 new battle groups in the region, one in Romania and one in Bulgaria. And these are in addition to 6 other battle groups that we have on the eastern flank of the alliance. And all of these battle groups can be scaled up to brigade level when and where required, which represents a significant strengthening of our posture on the eastern flank of the alliance. And this is in addition to increasing air surveillance over the Black Sea, which we do with both aircraft and with drones, and the capabilities of the Black Sea allies that we have, Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey, who are doing their own efforts, including a recent proposal and effort on a counter-mine naval group, which I think will contribute significantly to the security of that region. For NATO, Russia's war against Ukraine poses significant challenges to freedom of navigation in the Black Sea region. And so all allies are taking this very seriously and using a variety of sensors and equipment in order to both preserve our freedom of navigation, but also to understand the security environment in the region. And really, all allies that are in the region have made significant contributions to security, both for them on a national basis, but for the alliance as a whole.
Does NATO work exclusively with and for its allies, or does it engage with partners as well?
So one of the great strengths of the alliance is that we have an incredibly strong network of partners. Currently, we have 36 partners, and hopefully when Sweden joins the alliance, we will then only have 35, but this is a positive change. So really an impressive number of countries that are from all around the globe that work very closely with the alliance. We do a number of important things together. We engage in consultations and exchanges of best practices across a wide range of partnership areas. This is a very useful dialogue that we have with partners because we can benefit from their experiences and they can benefit from those of allies. So we learn a lot from each other. And it's really important because all of our countries are facing common security challenges. And it may look slightly different if you are in the Indo-Pacific region than if you are here, or if you are in the Western Balkans or in North Africa. And also in the Middle East, but really we are all grappling with the same kinds of challenges, and so the ability to talk to each other about them, to engage in genuine practical cooperation on them is incredibly important. And then we also don't just cooperate with allies as partners or countries as partners, but also organizations. So we have a very strong strategic partnership with the European Union, of course, that crosses many different areas, and also with the United Nations, the OSCE, and many other international organizations. So NATO highly values our relationships with partners. We think that it increases ally security, and we hope that it is also helping to increase the security of our partners.
Now, more specific, how does NATO view the concept of resilience?
So we like to say that resilience is in the DNA of the alliance. It's something that we have been focused on from the inception of NATO. But how it has manifested, the exact way that we do it has, of course, evolved over time, depending on the needs of allies. But there's a number of very important principles that we look at with resilience. First, we take what we call an all hazards approach, which means that we are working to strengthen allies and partners' resilience across the full spectrum, from natural disasters to cyber attacks, disinformation, hybrid campaigns, and also up to and including being resilient against an armed attack, as you know, in the context of Article 5. And resilience means different things to different people, but from the Alliance's standpoint, it's our national and collective capacity to prepare for, resist, respond to, and recover from this full spectrum of threats and challenges or shocks and disruptions, and to ensure the continuity of our activities. So resilience is a national responsibility, of course. It's for allies to identify where they are most vulnerable and to put in place measures to reduce those vulnerabilities. But we have a collective commitment to each other, and we work in a very collaborative manner with each other in order to strengthen our resilience. And an important point, and we talk often about, one of the underpinnings of resilience is a whole of government approach. And that means that different parts of every government need to talk to each other because they are responsible for different aspects of resilience. But it goes beyond this. It's a whole of society undertaking, which means that that populations in allied countries need to be involved. They need to be resilient themselves, and they also are an important component of the state's resilience. So allies and their populations have an important part to play. And it's also another key stakeholder is industry, or the private and the commercial sector, because it's in the Cold War, a lot more of our infrastructure, for example, was owned and operated by governments. And now this is a lot more in commercial hands or civil hands, and this is for transportation like railways and truck capacity. It's things like energy supply, so fuel networks and distribution. It's communications, both communications is largely in civil hands for our mobile phones and other ways of communicating with one another. So it's a very complex whole of government, whole of society approach that is involved. From a NATO standpoint, we agreed in 2016 to something called the 7 baseline requirements. And what these do is they set out some areas of focus for allies to channel their efforts and to ensure things like the continuity of government, the ability of having civil support for the military in crisis and conflict, and the provision of essential services to the population. So we look at this plus how to ensure that we're resilient in a number of specific sectors, such as transportation, communications, food and water supply, and energy. And so all of these are critically important to ensuring the resilience of our governments, of our societies, and of our nations.
Yeah, thank you. You underlined the whole of society and whole of government approach. That leads us to the next question. What is the role envisaged by NATO for the collaboration between civilian government structures and the military in the context of resilience?
So resilience is, as we've been saying, it takes this massive and comprehensive approach by many players, and I think the war in Ukraine has showed us very much how cross-cutting it is, how an attack that affects one sector, whether that's energy distribution, can have impacts in other sectors, which may be transport and communication. So in order for a government to function, whether it's as a result of war or disruption, say from a natural disaster, the military and the civil parts of a government need to collaborate and work together. And there's many areas in which they need to do this. And so the first is in terms of awareness. So are there indications and warnings of issues that are arising, and does this trigger a national system to spring into action? So you need cross-country awareness, and this may be different levels of government. I come from Canada. We have a federal system, so some responsibilities are in the hands of provincial governments or municipal governments, not all in national governments. So every country is a bit different in how they need to do this, but they need to have awareness. And then from there, they need to do planning. So how to address all of the possible threats and challenges that could impact a country or a region, because often something that may develop in one country will have spillover effects into other countries, or something in one sector spills over into other sectors. So planning is absolutely critical, and this includes planning with the private sector, so making arrangements with industry that we know we're going to depend on, and putting as much of this into place as possible. And then we need to exercise this whole machinery together. The military is very good at exercises. It happens quite naturally all of the time. We need for the civil sector and the private sector to become more involved in these exercises, and to ensure that we can do this on a regular basis. And this involves also the population. So the public needs to understand what's expected of them. And we need to make them broadly aware of the security environment we're in, the risks that are out there, and ensure that they're prepared to play their part as well.
How does NATO support the allies and partners in bolstering their resilience?
So we do this through a number of different tools. We talked already about the 7 baseline requirements, and under each of these are certain guidelines that allies and partners that are interested in cooperating with NATO in resilience, we share this information with them as well. We give them guidelines for how to ensure on a national basis their own resilience. So that's a key way. Another way is through resilience objectives and national implementation plans. So last year, allies agreed to a set of collective objectives, and now each ally on an individual basis needs to develop their own implementation plans for how to meet these objectives and to reduce any vulnerabilities that they have in various ways. So this is an ongoing process. It will be demanding on allies and really force them to look at their national systems and ensure that they have the best mechanisms in place. And another tool that we have is we now have annual meetings of senior officials responsible for resilience. And this is a new thing. And for some allies, they needed to identify who in their government would be that one person who is going to be responsible for resilience across this complex government machinery. And these resilience senior officials meet annually, as well as policy directors that meet. And this allows for exchanges among allies on key priorities and to gain lessons learned from one another. And also just to reinforce the network of contacts, which is of course important when you have a crisis. We work closely with the European Union, of course, also on this. We have staff-to-staff exchanges with the European Union, leveraging what both organizations can bring to the table. And we work in different ways in some respect. We have different capacities and authorities. The EU has a lot of regulatory authority, which is very helpful. So we need to leverage all of this to ensure that collectively we are all more resilient. In terms of supporting partners, which we also do, we reach out to them. We both learn from them, but also provide support in the form of expert teams that can develop their expertise. But maybe we talk about that more in a moment.
Expert teams. Mm-hmm. Please explain for our audience with what a Resilience Advisory Support Team's mission is, and who are the experts who participate in them.
Yeah, it's a really, this is something we've started developing over the last few years, and it's a really effective tool. We've had Resilience Advisory Support Teams that have supported both Ukraine and Moldova, and what these are teams that are led by the international staff in NATO, but they bring together civil experts that we have in the sectors that are most relevant to these countries. And I would say we have more than 500 civil experts that are in our civil experts pool, and they cover each of the sectors that we talked about from the 7 baseline requirements, but additional ones too, like space and in other areas where allies feel like they need to increase their resilience. So when we have a request for a RAST, a Resilience Advisory Support Team, we have a discussion with that partner about what they would like our support on, and if it's to work on how to organize their government in order to be more responsive in a crisis, or in particular areas, sectors such as energy or communication, we then compile a team. The team goes to the country, meets with the experts on the ground. They have extensive discussions, and then we put forward recommendations that the partner can adopt and work with in order to increase their resilience. So this has been, we found, quite an effective tool and way to understand both the challenges that our partners are facing, but how we can be proactive in supporting them in addressing these challenges.
Ms. Tarry, thank you so much for an illuminating discussion. Dear listeners, I hope you have enjoyed this episode as much as I have. Please stay tuned for the next episode when we'll bring you new and exciting topics about resilience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you.